In the opulent ballroom of the Willow Crest Gala in Seattle, where golden light spilled from ornate chandeliers and reflected off polished silverware, 16-year-old Lila Bennett sat quietly in her wheelchair. The event buzzed with the city's elite, tech moguls, philanthropists, and politicians, dancing to the soft strains of a string quartet. Lila's emerald green gown shimmered faintly, her auburn hair pinned elegantly, but her hazel eyes betrayed a flicker of yearning as they followed the swirling couples on the dance floor. 3 years ago, a skiing accident had stolen her ability to walk, leaving her as the poised but overlooked daughter of tech titan Marcus Bennett, whose company, Horizon Innovations, funded tonight's charity event. Lila's mother, Clara, leaned close, her voice soft. "You always loved to twirl." Lila offered a faint smile. "Still do," she replied, her tone light but hollow. Before Clara could say more, Marcus appeared, ushering her toward a cluster of donors. With a quick, apologetic glance, Clara followed, leaving Lila alone again, her fingers tracing the rhythm of the music on her armrest. Across the room, 36-year-old single father Javier Morales adjusted his waiter's vest, his dark eyes scanning the crowd. He was used to fading into the background, serving drinks to keep up with rent and his daughter Elena's school fees. His late wife, Sophia, had been a dancer, her spirit lingering in the way Elena swayed to music at home. Tonight, Javier's gaze kept drifting to Lila. He noticed the subtle way her shoulders tensed, the quiet longing in her face as the quartet began a waltz. When the music slowed, Lila's expression shifted. Just for a moment, her lips parted, her eyes distant. Javier set down his tray, his heart pounding. Ignoring the voice in his head warning him to stay in his place, he crossed the room. Guests moved aside without noticing, their focus on their own conversations. Lila's eyes met his as he approached, her expression wary but curious. Javier stopped before her, his voice steady. "May I have this dance?" The question hung between them, fragile and bold. Lila's breath hitched. The chatter, the clinking glasses, the music, it all faded. Her instinct was to deflect, to retreat behind a polite refusal. But his eyes held no pity, only warmth, and something in her stirred. Hesitantly, she reached out, her hand trembling as it met his. Javier's calloused fingers closed gently around hers, and the room seemed to pause. Whispers rippled through the crowd as heads turned. Lila's heart raced, her mind caught between fear and a strange, unfamiliar hope. Javier smiled, unhurried, and leaned closer. "We'll dance our way," he said softly. He guided her wheelchair with care, moving in time with the music, spinning her gently across the floor. Lila's laughter bubbled up, surprising even herself, as they wove through the stunned onlookers. The quartet played on, and for the first time in years, Lila felt alive, not invisible. Clara, watching from the sidelines, pressed a hand to her mouth, tears glistening. Marcus stood frozen, his usual composure cracking. As the song ended, applause erupted, tentative at first, then thunderous. Javier knelt beside Lila, his voice low. "You're a natural." Lila's eyes shone. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick. In that moment, the gala's polished facade melted away, leaving only the raw beauty of kindness. For Lila, it was a spark of courage reignited. For Javier, a reminder that even small acts could shift the world. And for everyone watching, it was a lesson in the power of a single, fearless moment. At the Willow Crest Gala in Seattle, the air shimmered with elegance, but for 16-year-old Lila Bennett, the dance floor was a distant memory. 3 years after a skiing accident left her paralyzed, she watched the swaying couples with a quiet ache. Her wheelchair, tucked near a gilded column, kept her on the edges of the glittering crowd. Javier Morales, the 36-year-old waiter who'd caught her gaze earlier, didn't hesitate. His warm brown eyes held no pity, only a quiet invitation as he stepped behind her chair, hands light on the handles. "Ready?" he asked, his voice steady. Lila's heart stuttered, but his calm certainty drew a nod from her. A smile broke across his face, and they began to move. It wasn't the ballet Lila once knew, no pirouettes or leaps, but Javier guided her wheelchair in gentle, rhythmic arcs, her emerald gown catching the light as they glided. The music, a tender violin melody, wrapped around them, and for the first time in years, Lila felt the rhythm pulse through her. The ballroom faded. The murmurs of surprise from the crowd dissolved. There was only the music, Javier's steady hands, and the spark of life in Lila's chest. She tilted her head back, a soft laugh escaping as they spun gently past stunned guests. Across the room, Marcus Bennett, Lila's father and tech mogul, paused mid-sentence, his wine glass hovering. His daughter dancing with a waiter. His jaw tightened. Clara, his wife, touched his arm. "Marcus, look at her," she whispered, her voice catching at Lila's radiant smile. But Marcus, in the sleek, silent car gliding through Seattle's rain-slicked streets, Marcus Bennett's voice cut through the tension. "What were you thinking, Lila?" His tone was sharp, restrained, but the anger simmered beneath. Lila kept her eyes on the window, tracing the city lights. "I was dancing." "You were drawing attention," Marcus snapped, his hand tightening on the armrest. "Do you know how that looked?" Her jaw tightened. She knew this voice, the one that branded her a liability, a blemish on the Bennett legacy. "He was being kind," she said, barely above a whisper. "Kind?" Marcus scoffed. "People like him always have an agenda. He saw a chance to get close to my daughter and took it." Lila's hands balled into fists. "You don't know him." "I don't need to," Marcus said, turning to her, his eyes like steel. "You're a Bennett. That name carries weight in this city. Act like it." The words stung, reigniting the old ache of not being enough. Lila wanted to fight back, to defend Javier, to scream that she was more than a name. But the fire in her fizzled, and she sank deeper into her chair. "I'm tired," she muttered as they pulled into the driveway of their sprawling Queen Inn estate, its stone facade glowing under soft floodlights. She maneuvered her wheelchair out of the car, ignoring Marcus's outstretched hand, and headed inside. In her expansive bedroom, Lila wheeled to the window, the Seattle skyline twinkling beyond. Her reflection, a girl in a shimmering gown, trapped in a polished prison, stared back. She pressed her forehead to the glass, the cold grounding her. Across town, Javier paced his small Capitol Hill apartment, the faint hum of a faulty radiator filling the quiet. Elena slept soundly now, her stuffed bear tucked under her arm. The babysitter's apology still echoed, but Javier's mind was elsewhere, on Lila's radiant smile as they danced, on Marcus Bennett's sneer, on Elena bursting into the gala. He sank onto the worn couch, rubbing his face. His home was modest, a far cry from the Bennett's world, with mismatched furniture and a sink that always dripped. But it was his and Elena's sanctuary, even after losing Maria to illness 4 years ago. Her photo sat on a shelf, Maria laughing in a red dress, Elena as a toddler in her arms. His phone buzzed. A text from his boss, "You're done. Don't show up tomorrow." Javier's stomach dropped. Then another notification, an email from an unfamiliar address. "Mr. Morales, I'm Clara Bennett. Can we meet for coffee tomorrow to discuss my daughter?" His pulse raced. What did this mean? Before he could process it, a small voice called, "Papa?" Elena stood in the hallway, clutching her bear, eyes heavy with sleep. The monster dream came back. Javier opened his arms, and she climbed into his lap, warm and small. "It was chasing me," she whispered. He hugged her close. "You know what scares monsters off?" She shook her head. "Dancing." He stood, spinning her slowly, her soft giggles lighting up the dim room. "See? They can't keep up." Elena smiled, fear fading. "Can we dance tomorrow too?" "Always mi vida," he said, kissing her forehead. As he tucked her back into bed, his thoughts returned to Lila, the way she'd lit up, the way she'd faced her father. A flicker of hope stirred in him, unfamiliar but undeniable. The next morning, Lila found Clara in the kitchen, 2 mugs of chamomile tea on the counter. Clara's smile was tentative. "Can we talk?" Lila hesitated, then wheeled closer. "If this is about last night..." "It's about you," Clara said gently. "I haven't seen you that alive in years." Lila's throat tightened. She gripped her mug, avoiding her mother's gaze. "Dad didn't think so." Clara sighed. "Your father's protective, sometimes to a fault." "Protective?" Lila's laugh was sharp, bitter. "He's ashamed of me. Of this." She gestured to her wheelchair. Clara's eyes shimmered with tears. "Lila, no. He struggles, but he loves you. He's embarrassed I'll never run Horizon, never be the perfect Bennett," Lila said, her voice breaking. Clara reached for her hand, her grip fierce. "You are exactly who you're meant to be. And if dancing with that man brought you joy, I want you to keep doing it." Lila's eyes met her mother's, and for the first time in a long while she felt seen. The memory of Javier's steady hands, Elena's hopeful invitation, lingered like a promise. Something had shifted, and Lila knew she wasn't going back to the shadows. Lila's eyes widened, her voice barely a whisper. "You did what?" Clara's hand tightened around hers. "I invited Javier to meet me today." Before Lila could process, the front door of their Queen Inn mansion slammed. Marcus's voice boomed, edged with frustration. "Clara, where's my?" He froze in the doorway, his sharp gaze darting between them. "What's this about?" Clara rose, her posture firm. "We're talking." About last night? Marcus's tone was clipped. Lila braced for another lecture, but Clara surprised her. Actually, I was telling Lila I'd like to invite Javier Morales to Elena's dance recital this weekend. The air stilled. Marcus's expression darkened. Out of the question. Why? Clara pressed. Because he's not one of your elite. Not part of your world. He's a nobody who overstepped, Marcus snapped. I won't let Lila be used by some opportunist. Dad. Lila's voice sliced through, steady and unyielding. Both parents turned. She held Marcus's gaze, her hands calm on her wheelchair. I'm going to that recital. With or without your approval. Marcus stared, and for a moment, Lila saw something crack in his eyes, fear, not anger. Then it vanished, replaced by a cold mask. Fine, he said sharply. But that man doesn't come near this house. He stormed out, his footsteps echoing. Lila's breath trembled. Clara squeezed her hand, neither noticing Marcus pause in the hall, his shoulders slumping. He pulled out his phone, hesitating before dialing. Dr. Larson, it's Marcus Bennett. I need to discuss Lila's treatment options. There has to be more we can do. Control was slipping, and Marcus couldn't bear it, not after seeing Lila defy him. The community center gym in Seattle's Fremont district smelled of sweat and anticipation. Plastic chairs lined the room, filled with parents holding phones and wilting carnations. A small stage, draped in colorful streamers, stood at the front. Lila lingered near the back, her heart racing. She shouldn't have come. Her tailored coat and poised demeanor screamed outsider among the casual crowd. Clara had wheeled her in with a warm smile before slipping away to find a seat, leaving Lila to navigate the chaos of kids running through the aisles. Then she saw him. Javier knelt near the stage, tying a bow on a little girl's ballet slipper. Elena, unmistakable even without her pajamas, buzzed with excitement, her dark curls bouncing as she talked animatedly. Javier nodded, his face mock serious. Sensing Lila's gaze, he looked up. Their eyes met, and the noisy gym seemed to quiet. He said something to Elena, then wove through the crowd toward Lila, his movements easy, unhurried. You came, he said, his voice warm, rougher than at the gala. Up close, Lila noticed the faint lines around his eyes, the way his faded jacket hung loosely. This wasn't the polished waiter. This was Javier, unguarded. I said I would, Lila replied, her throat tight. He crouched beside her, meeting her gaze at eye level. You didn't have to. His care to avoid towering over her sent a quiet warmth through her. I wanted to, she said softly. A small voice broke through. Lila. Elena raced over, her pink tutu bouncing, eyes wide. You're here. Papa said you might be too busy. Javier cringed. Elena. It's okay, Lila said, her smile genuine. I keep my promises. Elena grinned. Come sit with us. We saved seats up front. You'll see me dance perfectly. Javier opened his mouth, likely to protest, but Lila nodded. I'd like that. As Javier guided her chair to the front row, ignoring curious stares, Lila caught Clara waving from a nearby seat. The gym buzzed, but for Lila, the world narrowed to Elena's excitement, Javier's steady presence, and the promise of a moment that felt like freedom. Clara's smile was warm as she watched Javier guide Lila's chair. The gym lights dimmed before Lila could second-guess herself. What followed was a joyful, messy display of young dancers, 5-year-olds wobbling through plies, older kids attempting breakdance moves with varying success. Javier's voice rang out, encouraging each stumble with infectious enthusiasm. Then Elena took the stage, her tiny frame radiating confidence. The soft notes of a violin piece filled the air, and she danced, imperfectly missing a turn, nearly tripping, but her face glowed with pure joy. Lila's chest tightened. She remembered that feeling, the freedom of movement before her accident. The recital ended with a collective bow, Elena beaming as the crowd clapped. She sprinted to Lila. Did you see my twirl? Lila grinned. It was incredible. Elena grabbed her hand. Papa says we're getting ice cream. Come with us. Elena, Javier said softly. Lila might have. I'd love to, Lila interrupted, surprising herself. Javier's eyes widened. Across the aisle, Clara gave a subtle nod. They were nearing the exit when a sharp voice cut through. Lila. Marcus stood by the doors, his sleek overcoat out of place against the gym's worn walls. The crowd parted instinctively. Elena's grip on Lila's hand tightened. Who's that? Javier stiffened. Mr. Bennett. Marcus ignored him, his eyes on Lila. We need to talk. The air grew heavy. Lila steadied her breath. About what? Not here. Marcus's gaze flicked to Javier, dismissive. Your mother told me you were here. I'm taking you home. I'm going for ice cream with Elena, Lila said, her voice firm. Marcus's jaw clenched. This isn't the time. Marcus, Clara interjected, stepping beside him, her tone calm but resolute. Let her go. A silent standoff unfolded. Finally, Marcus relented, stepping back. We'll talk later. He strode out, the tension easing in his wake. Elena, unfazed, tugged Lila's sleeve. Can we get rainbow sprinkles? Lila met Javier's unreadable gaze. Yeah, she said softly. Sprinkles sound perfect. The ice cream parlor in Fremont was loud, crowded, and alive. Elena chattered through mouthfuls of strawberry swirl, reenacting her dance while Javier listened with mock amazement. Lila laughed freely, her guard down for the first time in years. When Clara stepped outside for a call, Javier leaned closer. You okay? Lila stirred her melting sundae. My dad doesn't usually track me down. Javier paused. If this is causing trouble. It's not, Lila said quickly. He's just controlling. The word tasted sour. Javier studied her. Elena wasn't always so bold. After her mom passed, she stopped talking for months. Lila glanced at Elena, now giggling over her sprinkles. Really? Dance brought her back, Javier said, his voice soft. She'd watch Maria's old salsa videos, mimicking her steps. One day, mid-twirl, she started speaking again. Lila's breath caught. No one had ever named the shift she'd felt since her accident, the moment she became the girl in the wheelchair. Javier's words cracked something open. Clara returned, her face tight. Lila, we need to go. Javier straightened. Everything okay? Marcus found out about the clinical trial, Clara said, her voice strained. In Germany. He's pushing it forward next week. Lila's stomach plummeted. The experimental procedure, with its 30% success rate, was one she'd rejected months ago after reading the risks. He can't. He's already booked it, Clara said, her eyes glistening. He thinks Javier's a distraction. The world blurred. Lila thought of Elena's laughter, Javier's steady hands on her chair, the fleeting moment she'd felt whole. She made a choice. Turn the car around. Clara blinked. What? I'm not going to Germany, Lila said, her voice shaking but firm. Take me back to the ice cream shop. The drive back felt endless, every stoplight a challenge to Lila's resolve. Clara's knuckles whitened on the wheel. You're sure? Yes, Lila said, unwavering. The parlor's neon glow appeared. Javier was wiping a table, Elena coloring nearby. He looked up, concern flashing as he saw Lila's expression through the window. He was at the door before Clara parked, Elena trailing with a smudge of ice cream on her chin. What's wrong? Javier asked, crouching by Lila's window. My dad, Lila said, her voice catching. He's trying to send me to Germany for a risky surgery. Javier stilled. Elena pressed close to him. Clara stepped out. It's dangerous, she said. The complications. He won't listen, Lila finished, meeting Javier's eyes. I don't want to go. Then don't, Javier said, his gaze steady. You're 16. You have a voice. Lila's hands shook on her wheels. For years, Marcus had dictated her treatments, her life. But this was bigger than medicine. It was about her freedom. Help me, she whispered. Javier nodded, pulling out his phone, his resolve mirroring hers. For the first time, Lila felt ready to fight for herself. Explore clinical trial risks. Physical therapy options. Maria's sister, Carmen, is a family law attorney, Javier said, his voice steady. Let me call her. Clara's breath hitched. Please. Javier's eyes held Lila's. I'll do whatever it takes. The next 48 hours were a whirlwind. Carmen arrived swiftly, her sharp gaze assessing as Lila laid out the situation. By midnight, they'd filed an emergency injunction to stop the Germany transfer. By dawn, Marcus's legal team was in disarray. Lila had never seen her father so enraged. You're ruining your future, he'd bellowed during their last heated clash. Lila, unflinching, met his gaze. No, I'm taking it back. A week later, in the quiet of a Fremont Community Center dance studio, Lila sat in her wheelchair, still reeling. The court had sided with her. The Germany trip was canceled. Marcus hadn't spoken to her since, but Clara's support was enough. The studio door creaked. Javier entered, Elena skipping beside him, her eyes bright. Ready? He asked. Lila nodded, her heart racing. This was Carmen's idea, a declaration, not just for the court, but for herself. Elena clapped. I'm the spotter. Javier grinned, rolling up his sleeves. You got it, mi vida. What followed wasn't therapy or a cure. It was alive, electric. Javier guided Lila's chair through fluid movements, spins, and dips that felt like flying. Elena giggled, clapping off beat when the music skipped. Lila danced, not like before the accident, not like she might in some uncertain future, but fully, fiercely in this moment. The door swung open. Marcus stood there, his tailored suit stark against the worn studio walls. His eyes took in Javier's hands on Lila's chair, Elena's radiant grin, Lila's sweat-dampened joy. Silence fell. Then, impossibly, Marcus stepped forward, hand extended. "Show me," he said, voice rough. Lila froze, then reached for him, tears welling. Javier guided them both, his touch steady. Elena counted beats, her voice echoing as the setting sun bathed the room in amber. Seattle's most powerful man learned to dance with his daughter again. 6 months later, a sign above the studio read Bennett's Inclusive Dance in vibrant letters. Inside, wheelchairs glided, crutches tapped rhythms, and laughter filled the air. Elena handed out schedules with pride. Clara chatted with parents by the windows, her smile warm. In the center, Lila coached a shy teen through a turn, her voice gentle but sure. Marcus leaned in the doorway, coffee in hand, watching Lila glow. Javier approached, wiping his brow. "Not bad for a waiter and a tech mogul's kid, right?" Marcus gave a low chuckle, then, surprising himself, extended his hand. "Thank you," he said gruffly. Javier shook it. "Anytime." Outside, Seattle's skyline gleamed in the morning light. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to know every ending can spark a new beginning. Sometimes the bravest dance is the one you never thought possible.